for with students' names on there that passed away while they were attending the high
Oh,
school.
wow.
Which was
Who is the honcho on the project?
Taylor Sutsugu and his buddies.
Oh, okay.
They were seniors last year.
Hal's son.
Yeah.
Hal's a good guy. He really is.
So,
Yeah, his son's off to Purdue.
yeah, he's coming back in a couple months.
Am I on?
You
Can
sure
I-
are.
You are. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Lois.
Hi, Lois. Hi, John
Oh,
Jones.
okay,
Hi, Bill
good.
Kane.
I'm a
Hi, Fred.
computer dunce,
Hi,
and my
Jesse.
8-year-old is not here. Thank you.
Who else has come on? Hello, Dean Serwin.
Oh, Dean is my guest.
Okay.
Great.
Hello, Daryl.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Hello, Dr. Wilson. Good to see you. Brian.
There.
Hello, Jason.
Hi, everybody. Hey, I'm in Costco. I apologize if there's.
No worries. We'll get started in about 5 minutes.
I did put in the chat the sign-in sheet. It's a Google form. I can repost it again. And it's for everybody who is a guest, who's a Rotarian. Please sign in.
How do you do that?
I'm going to repost it.
How do you sign in?
Click on the link and then just
Click
type.
on it,
Yeah.
it'll open it up, and it's just 4 questions. I'm going to
Wow.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, guys.
How you feeling?
I'm okay, a little sore, but I'm doing all right.
Okay.
I'll make it the whole meeting, but I'm here for now.
Can you walk?
Yeah, I can walk I walk a little bit every hour.
Okay.
What happened?
For my follow-up visit today.
What happened to you?
Oh, I had a lumbar fusion surgery last Wednesday, so my L5 and my S1, they fused them together. So yeah, I was at Huntington Hospital for a few days.
I hope that fixes your golf swing, Rob.
Yeah, oh, I might need a lobotomy for that.
Yeah, we need you for the spring fundraiser. It's going to be a golf tournament.
Right.
I'm going to be on your team.
Okay. Count me in. Yeah, if it's spring, I have a chance. About 6 more months, I said. 6 to 9 months.
God, that's a long time.
Yeah. How's everybody else doing?
Good. Good.
Been spiffy. Congratulations on the surgery.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Ferry. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Mary.
Want to come say hello?
Sorry, Gilda, I didn't have time. I call you later.
Okay, sounds good. I love it. Thank you, Bari.
There's Dr. Lynn's on there. Hi.
Hi, Lily.
Oh, cute. Very cute.
We'll get started in a few minutes.
Want to do the Pledge of Allegiance with us? Yes, you.
Hello, Jean Orlowski. Good to see you. Right. Hi, Grace.
Hi.
Hello.
How are
Good to
you?
see you. Good. Good. How are you?
I'm fine. So much work.
Great.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I have.
You in the wrong
Can
meeting?
see. Oh. I thought I can see anybody. Okay, I see everything.
Where'd it go? What the fuck happened here?
Gee. I'm gonna mute him there.
Mary.
Gee, you're off on mute there. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's do that. Okay. As we remember, that September is Basic Education Literacy Month in the Rotary world, I call the September 24th, 2020 meeting of the Rotary Club of San Marino to order. We are truly a club that
Makes no difference.
makes a difference, Dennis, makes a difference. Exactly. Okay, please stand and join me in reciting the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Let me go ahead and share that. Can you all see that?
That.
Yes.
Okay, great. First,
Is it the truth?
True.
second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will it build a goodwill and better friendship?
fourth,
Is it
Beneficial to all concerned?
concerned. Thank you. Okay, give me one moment here. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation led today by Maurice Saldivar.
Everyone, if you would please stand and place your right hand over your heart and begin.
I
pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
to the
republic
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And today I'll read today's invocation. As we gather here today as members of Rotary, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Thank you so much, Maurice. That was great. Okay, introduction of guests. And I will hand it over to Gilda.
Hey, thank you very much. So first of all, if you have not yet signed in, it is in the chat. There is a Google form or a doc that you just click it and it has 4 questions. I will repost it after I go through all the announcements. So let me take a look. I did see Steve Garrett, who's with us today. Thank you for visiting, Steve. Where are you? You're on your page, I think. Okay, anyway, Steve Garrett was a district governor with District 53. I don't know when, but not too long ago. So he's with us here today. And then Blaine, I don't believe your husband made it yet. Or Devin. I meant to say your husband's name. I said your husband's name. Okay.
Yeah, he's picked up a job today, so he's going to hop in if he can, but he might not make it.
Very good. And we have many inductions today. All of our 6 new members are going to be inducted today. So Jack Lau, welcome back. Obviously, you're going to be inducted today. Your wife is here, Jenny Say. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, very good. Nice to have you. Let's see, who else do we have? Jason Kurtenbach. Thank you. And we have Carol Napoleon is here, going to be inducted today. We have Mary Yulin, who's going to be inducted today. Let's see, who am I missing?
Did you get Dean?
Dean Serwin is my guest today. Dean and I are part of a team network. He's an entertainment attorney. He's actually doing a talk next week. I'll send you a link if you're interested. Okay. Of course, Michael, you're going to be introduced. You're our speaker. You'll be introduced later, more formally. Who am I missing? Did I miss anybody?
I think you got everybody.
I thought I saw Steve Garrett. Did he leave?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure.
I did introduce him. He's here, but I don't see him right now.
Okay, is that it? Okay, thank you so much, Gilda. Okay, now we are going to do our pandemic pig envelope donations. Please raise your envelopes. Please raise your money. And go ahead and put your money in the pandemic pig. Great, thank you so much for participating. Okay, and I'm going to do a brief explanation on the pandemic pig for all of our new members. Can you all see that? Yes, okay. So our goal in 2021 is to raise $1,275 for Polio Plus. And the way that we normally do that is we normally pass around a pig during our meeting times, a piggy bank, as if you want to call it that, and we insert cash on the pass around. But since we can't meet together, our foundation president, John Jones, has set up this creative idea, polio pig. All you have to do is, you can see Lily's envelope. All you have to do is take a blank envelope and decorate it in a polio pig theme. And then every week when we call out for the pandemic pig donation, just raise your envelopes and insert the amount that you wish. So we're hoping to meet our goal of $1,275 prior to the end of the Rotary year, and that's at the end of June. Okay, moving on. Okay, let's go to birthdays. September 27th, that's Greg Johansson. Happy birthday to Greg. All right.
Hey.
Tomorrow, September 25th, Lucille Norberg is turning 97 years old. I don't see her on the call. Yeah, I don't see her on the call.
She's 67.
She's 67. I don't see her on the call, but if you do see her, please make sure that you wish her happy birthday tomorrow. September 29th, Gregory Thompson. Okay. Member anniversaries, September 27th, Fong Ho will celebrate 7 years as a Rotarian, San Marino Rotarian. On September 30th, Joseph Petrillo will celebrate 26 years as a Rotarian. Wedding anniversaries, September 25th, tomorrow. Please wish Bill Payne and his wife, Mary, a happy anniversary. Happy 54th anniversary, Bill.
Happy anniversary.
Okay. September 30th, Joe and Terry Petrillo will celebrate an anniversary as well. I don't know how many years, but please, if you see them, please wish them a happy anniversary. September 26th, Grace Yang. Where are you, Grace? Her and her husband, Frank, will celebrate 26 years married. So please wish Grace a happy anniversary.
Aaron,
Okay.
Aaron,
Yes.
Liz and I stopped by to see Lucille about an
Okay.
hour or so ago. She said to say hello to everybody. She was going to try to get on the Zoom meeting, but she is just doing great. She looks great. She says she feels wonderful. And we dropped a cake off a little before her birthday for tomorrow. But she wishes, she says to say hello to everybody, and she loves everybody in Rotary.
Thank you so much for the update, Dennis. Okay, one more birthday. Someone is celebrating a birthday today, and Michelle Cox. Let's say happy birthday to Michelle Cox.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I celebrated a birthday on Monday.
Oh, okay. We don't have that
Yeah.
either. Happy birthday to Maurice.
I turned 39 again. It's like
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
You and Jack Benny.
Okay. So folks, these dates are drawn down from DACTV. So if I didn't announce your birthday, please go ahead and update your profile on DACTV. Okay, we are going to go right into our new member inductions. We have quite a bit of member inductions today. We're really excited. We have 6 members today. We're really excited. We have Greg Jones from our district governor to help us with that. So I am going to pass it over to Gilda, and we'll do announcements after that.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Yes, we have quite a few inductions, so I don't think we can spotlight everybody, but we have Mary Yulin, we have Jason Kurtenbach. Did I get that right, Jason?
Yep, you did.
Okay, good. Dr. Michael Lynn, and he wants to go by Mike. We have Daryl Topolian, and we have Devin Corlew and Jack Lau. These are the members. And what I'm gonna do now is read their bios. And so bear with me as I go through, and some will be a little bit longer. And then Greg will do the honors with sort of the pinning. So we'll do that. If you are not muted, I'm gonna go around. Maybe Aaron, if you wanna go around and mute.
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I will start with ladies first. Mary Yulin, she's a resident of San Marino. She's being sponsored by Fred Soul, is married to John Yulin and proud parent of Curtis, 28 years old, Christine, 25, Victoria, 22, and Althea, 20. Her classification is going to be an ESL teacher. She's a community organizer and volunteer activist. On a recent trip to Nepal with a friend of hers who's part of the Seattle Rotary, she said, I gotta learn about San Marino Rotary. And she's visited here many times. So we're grateful that you're here finally and able to be part of our club and serve our community. She is not new to serving in many ways. She has served on the San Marino Public Library Board Foundation. She's board member of the San Gabriel Valley Literary Arts Council, board member and patron committee chair, Planned Parenthood San Gabriel Valley, past board member and president of Partnership for Awareness, and part of the San Marino Schools Foundation. Mary is a gaucho. She graduated from UC Santa Barbara with a degree in religious and cultural studies, went on to work in fundraising. Did you guys hear that? Fundraising and finance. She has currently, or in recent months, she's volunteered and helping immigrants by teaching ESL and citizenship classes. She has worked to improve access to reproductive health care. She's an avid traveler and enjoys playing tennis, volleyball, and has run 3 marathons. That's Mary Yulin. Let me go to Devin Corlew. Okay, so it's a little bit shorter. Graduate of Biola University in Business Administration and an MBA from Cal State Bakersfield, Cal State University Bakersfield. She is the executive director at the YMCA. She has been with the Y for the last 15 years. Prior to coming to South Pasadena, San Marino, she was with the Culver City. She is married to Blaine Corlew and is a proud mother of a 5th grader also named Lily. We have 2 Lilies here. Devin and Blaine live in Valencia. Welcome. And Devin is being sponsored by Bill Payne. Okay, now let me go to Jason Kurtenbach. Jason Kurtenbach is the new principal at San Marino High School. Previously, he was principal at the Huntington Middle School and served as the executive director of curriculum and instruction. His community efforts have been with the AYSO organization, Knights of Columbus, and Habitat for Humanity. Jason grew up in a small town in Nebraska of only 300 people, kind of crazy. He got a degree in journalism from University of Nebraska, moved to California in 1995, attended Pepperdine, graduated from Pepperdine. He got his master's degree in education in 2000 and a master's degree in administration in 2004. He has been at San Marino Schools for the past 8 years. Jason resides in Redondo Beach, and his application is being sponsored by Dr. Wilson. Welcome. Okay, Dr. Michael Lynn, or Mike, is a resident of San Gabriel. He also is proposed by Dr. Wilson. He's the principal of Carver Elementary School and the acting director of curriculum and instruction. He received his BA in engineering from Cooper Union, while at the same time working at Credit Suisse, an investment bank. After the tragic events of 9/11, Dr. Lin found his calling in education and completely changed gears. He's worked as a math and computer science teacher in inner city New York prior to moving to California with his wife. He taught at Mark Keppel High School in Alhambra. He was the principal of Santa Rosa Elementary School in Temple City before coming to San Marino 5 years ago. In 2016, Dr. Lin became the Carver Elementary School principal. 2 years ago, he obtained his PhD in educational leadership from Azusa Pacific. Dr. Lin enjoys hiking, backpacking, and visiting state and national parks in his spare time. He is an elected official of the Temple City Unified School District School Board, advocating for full and fair state funding for California public schools. Welcome. Okay. Daryl Topalian, also sponsored by Dr. Wilson and the San Marino Unified School District. He's the principal at Huntington Middle School, a single father to 4 kids. Taya, 21, who's at PCC, Jamon, 19, who's at NYU, Trayton, 17, and Josiah, 15, who are at Maranatha High School. Currently resides in San Gabriel, grew up in Temple City, and grew up with parents who were active in the Kiwanis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Okay. He is a VW enthusiast and can be seen in his VW bus if you've spotted it at the middle school. He's an announcer at soccer games, has been an educator for 26 years in various capacities. He served as a substitute teacher, a custodian, a bus driver, teacher, assistant principal, and now principal. Welcome. And last but not least, Jack Lau. Jack is married to Jenny Say, who's with us here today. They have a daughter, Chloe, who is 9 months old. Jack is the current vice president and manager of HSBC Bank in San Marino. He's a member of the Asian Real Estate Association and the Hong Kong Association of Southern California, a finance major graduate from UC Riverside. He moved to the US from Hong Kong when he was 15. Jack Lau speaks Mandarin as well as Cantonese, and they reside in Alhambra. And now I give the podium to Greg, our district governor.
Well, thank you, Gilda. I just want to say, wow, adding 6 members and 6 very high quality members to your club in one day, that's quite an achievement and quite a measure of growth and quite a measure of the effectiveness of the San Marino Rotary Club in the San Marino community and what you're doing to make the community much better there. You definitely are a club that makes a difference, and we're happy to have 6 more members to help you even do more of that. So first, of the 6 of you, I'd say welcome to Rotary. There are several milestones in life that are life-altering. We go through life very focused on our careers and our families, but at some point we realize that we need to do more to give back to our communities. We believe that joining Rotary is one of those life-altering moments. When I was inducted into Rotary, I thought it was one of the most important decisions I'd ever made, and that set the tone for me as a Rotarian. I hope it does for you as well. You've been chosen for the membership of the Rotary Club of San Marino because your fellow members believe you to be leaders in your vocations and in the San Marino community. We look to you to be liaisons between this club and other members of your profession. We expect you to educate the club about your classification, and on the other hand, it becomes your duty to carry Rotary ideals, principles of service to your friends, business associates, and members of the vocations in which you represent. While membership in Rotary is an honor and privilege, it also involves corresponding obligations. I think the most important obligation of joining Rotary is that you have an obligation to find something that I'm calling your Rotary why. The why is what it is that you can bring to this club and the community that will improve the lives of all, including yourself. It's a very important thing to do. We also call that finding your Rotary moment. And I hope that your sponsors and mentors in the club will help you do that. One of the great privileges of joining Rotary is fellowship and the mutual confidence that it inspires. Therefore, we as Rotarians, and especially the Rotarians of the San Marino Club, commit ourselves to make our part, to do our part to make you feel welcome. In return, we expect that you will share the responsibility for the development of closer personal relationships, to which will be our mutual benefit. Good Rotarians must consistently keep before themselves the primary object of Rotary, which is service above self. That's our motto, and Rotary expects each member to live up to that ideal. You also must live by the 4-way test. You heard us say that at the beginning of the meeting. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? If you live by these rules, you will never go wrong. We know that you will receive we know that we will receive much from you and service, and we enable us to become better Rotarians. And we most heartily offer you the right hand of Rotary Fellowship. On behalf of the Rotary Club of San Marino and Rotary International, may I welcome you into Rotary, and the Rotary Wheel, which faces inward for friendship and fellowship, and outward in service to our community and to the world. I believe that Gilda has Rotary pins for all of you. Gilda, do you want to show them that? And she will be getting each of you your Rotary pin. Please wear that proudly as a symbol to the community that you belong to an organization that is trying to change the world. There you go. Thank you, Gilda. And so now, members of the San Marino Rotary Club, I ask you to please welcome your 6 newest members. Please give us a round of applause for those 6. Thank you. Back to you, Gilda.
Thank you, Greg. This was, I don't think we've ever inducted 6 at a time. I think 3 at a time we've done. So this is really history in the making. Congratulations to all of you and to the club. And this is because of Aaron, really. It's because of Aaron. Aaron, congratulations.
This has nothing to do with me. This is honestly, thank you to you and the membership committee. Thanks to Bill and Fred and Dr. Wilson for sponsoring these members. Thank you, Greg, for coming today. It was very special. And please come back when we have the next member.
Anytime you invite me, Aaron.
Thank you so much. So to Dr. Michael Lin, Jason Kurtbach, Daryl Topelian, Devin Corlew, Jack Sy, Mary Yulin, you are welcome. I mean, you're welcome here with open arms. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us. And take a look around at the faces you see. They're all warm faces. You can ask anyone if you have any questions at all. Feel free to ask me any questions. So please, welcome. Thank you very much for joining San Marino Rotary. Congratulations. Okay, great. Okay, moving on to the announcements. I'd like to get to the speaker in the next 10 minutes, so we're gonna have to speed through these here. I have Gilda for your announcement on the survey.
Okay, thank you. So a couple of announcements. Tonight is the meet and greet. A lot of you have been invited, but I want to extend the invitation to everybody else. It's for the new members and for the yearlings. It's on my Zoom. If I will put my Zoom information in the chat. Those of you who have RSVP'd, we'll see you. It's 5:30 to 6:30 tonight. And then there was a survey that I sent out, I think 2 days ago. 29 of you have responded. I'm gonna put it in the link here. I'm gonna ask Russ to send it out in the newsletter and you'll get it again. I'm hoping for 100% participation. Those of you who have replied already, thank you. It helps us understand what are some projects that you're doing that we can do as a collective, and it helps us connect with you if you haven't logged into our weekly meetings here on Zoom. So please go back to that email. I'll put it up on the chat. Fill it out. It's like 8 questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Gil. And it helps us to understand how we can make this experience of Zoom better too, right? Okay, John Jones, Foundation meeting.
Yeah, just brief announcement. To invite as many people as would like to come to the Foundation Committee meeting. I'm the chair of that. We meet on the second Tuesday of each month at 7:30 in the morning. Our usual enticement when we were together were great baked goods and coffee. You can still have those, but you're going to have to do it yourself. So look forward to seeing anybody that would like to join us second Tuesday at 7:30 in the morning. Let me know and I'll add you to our list.
Okay, for this next announcement, Dennis and I are going to try to speed through this here. The board, as you know, the next Rotary quarter begins October and goes into December. So it's officially known as our second quarter in Rotary since our year begins in June. For the next quarter, the board has decided, we have no other choice but to continue meeting via Zoom. We're going to be doing that indefinitely until we get the clearance to get, we're able to meet together in person. So for October, November, December, we'll continue meeting via Zoom. We've also made some decisions on dues, and Dennis is going to help explain that, and I'll bring up a little slide here.
Because we're not incurring very many expenses, we are reducing the charges to our members. Just to put it in context, usually in normal times it was $318 a quarter, and that included meals and dues and the amount to Rotary charities and the Paul Harris Lunch. We reduced it last quarter down to $173, plus $100 for the Rotary Foundation, so it was $273. So going into now the second quarter, and I'll get these bills out sometime in October, it's going to be $125. And the dues part is on your screen, $47, $15 for the Paul Harris Luncheon. Now, I want to make it clear that we're still billing for the Paul Harris Luncheon, but if, in fact, we don't have it because of Mr. COVID, we will somehow get that as a credit back to you. And we still want to carry on, though, our charitable activities. And so every quarter, people donate $63, and that really is, you also get Motor Classic tickets for that. But the money all goes to Rotary charities. And so the 47 was really just a plug to round it off to 125. And that covers RI dues, district dues, and some minor expenses that we do have, like membership pins, et cetera, et cetera. We did just order some banners, and that was an expense. So we cover all of our expenses with the minor amount. So that's what you can expect for this next quarter.
Yeah. You like my profile pic? Oh, dang it.
Go ahead, Dennis. I think we're okay now. Dennis?
What's the question?
No, we're okay now. I think it was just someone who was unmuted. You're okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, if there are no questions, that's what it's going to be for next quarter. It's getting more and more reasonable. And I wish it was more, because that means we'd be getting together, having lunches and all that sort of thing. But it's not the way it is right now. So that's it.
All right. So look out for a more formal letter from me via email coming within the next couple of days. Do we have any questions regarding this? Okay. All right. Moving on to our next announcement. Is Denise on the call? Did you want me to make this, or do you want me to go ahead and do it?
Yeah, I'm here. If you want to pop it on up.
Perfect. I'll do that.
You know, our students are always finding ways to be creative. And let's see if that's popping up. One of my former students mentioned that there are going to be shoes in front of City Hall. This is hot off the presses. I got it this morning. It is about climate control and how our climate matters. And so since the students can't peacefully assemble together, they are going to put their shoes there. So anytime between 11:30 and 6:30 on Friday, you're going to see quite a few pairs of shoes in front of City Hall. They're either going to pick those up or use them for another event later. And this is from Ray Bear McKenna up at the high school, and her younger sister sent me an email saying, hey, Miss Wadsworth, can you let people know? So I'm letting you know. Thanks.
Thank you, Denise. And I am going to share a link for those that want more information on that event tomorrow. There it is. Okay. And that's tomorrow from 11:30 to 6:30, correct? Okay. Last announcement is, of course, we need more help with the pledging invocation. I'm going to go ahead and send a link specifically for October. Let's go ahead and try to fill up those dates there. And that should be it. Okay. Next week for our program we have Craft Talks. Members Michael Kolaki and Evan Darmali will be our guest speakers. Then the week after that, we have District Governor Greg Jones on October 8th. He'll be joining us for that day. So perfect. Looking forward to that.
Hey, Aaron?
Yes, James.
I see that Lucille has joined us.
Oh, okay.
And just to say a happy birthday to her.
Happy birthday, Lucille. Everybody give her a wave.
This is Lucille.
Okay. All right. I am going to hand over the meeting to JP to introduce our guest speaker.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. I'm very happy to welcome Michael to our meeting today. Michael Roberts, he's the founding executive director of the Resnick Center for Food Law and Policy at the UCLA School of Law. He's actively involved in the development of food law and policy. He's teaching at UCLA different courses, one including this one, which I'm personally interested in following also. Historical perspective, the role of law in the pursuit of a moral food system. Michael has been practicing law and food law for a long time, but you need to know that he actually started growing on a farm. His parents had a farm in Utah, and he's been involved in growing produce on the farm with his parents for a long time. So he knows everything about going from the basic to the victory of food law. Michael has been spending some time in Italy, in Rome. He has led the Resnick Center into a partnership with the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, based in Rome. And he is a unique American who was able to talk about olive oil quality with Italians without any major headache. With this, Michael, thank you very much for being with us, and I hand over to you.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. Tell me what time I need to stop, and I'll make sure I end on time.
Like 1:15 would be great. 1:15.
Okay, and I want to leave time for questions too.
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay, I'm going to put on my PowerPoint here for you. There we go. Can everyone see it? Give me a thumbs up if you do, or say, okay, great. All right, well, I'm delighted to be with you. I can see this is a great group of people, and you know how to have fun and give and work hard. So I appreciate you setting an example for the likes of me and others that appreciate your service to the community and how much you give. It's really wonderful. So as Jean-Pierre mentioned, and he's a dear friend, and I really appreciate being here, and we dine a lot together. And so he's learned that if there's one thing I can do, because I specialize in food law, is ruin a good meal. And that's what I intend to do for you today with your lunch, if I accomplish my mission here. But to begin with, since a lot of you, I can tell, are, you struggle a little bit like I do with Zoom and this new technology, I thought you might appreciate the slide that I showed my class, and my students really related to it the other day. So we're at UCLA. Of course, I'm not allowed on campus, so we teach by Zoom, and my first two classes were just absolutely catastrophic. But I think I'm getting the hang of it, and I've enjoyed working with the students with this new technology, and here we go. So I'm going to talk to you today about food fraud. And this is something that we've worked on really diligently here at UCLA. But before I sort of jump into it, I've been involved in this space now for about 18 years. And I was working at a law firm handling a lot of interesting international law work, but not really satisfied. And I picked up an article in the Harvard Business Review on the future of food. And it really struck a chord with me, having been raised around food, as Jean-Pierre mentioned. And then I began to, make a long story short, I began to be active in this space, started writing. I joined the faculty at the University of Arkansas in Northwest Arkansas in Fayetteville, where Bill and Hillary Clinton used to teach. Went from there to Rome and then to LA, and I've been to Washington, D.C., and I've lived since then in all over the world, spent summers in China, the UK, and in Italy, all teaching or working on projects related to food law. It's been quite an experience. And now we have the center at UCLA. I taught the first food law class 18 years ago at the University of Arkansas. There's now 50 law schools teaching a similar class. Harvard has a food law center now as well. A number of law schools are following suit. This is a really popular area, and with the global industry of food, there's plenty of legal work to do for lawyers as well. But one of the issues that has arisen that is sort of the ugly underbelly, if you will, of food, and a close cousin to food safety, is food fraud. And you may ask, well, what is food fraud? Well, food fraud is anything that makes food not what it purports to be. So it's a pretty broad example, or definition, but I think some of these examples will help you get a feel for it. It really came to front here in 2008 when it was exposed in China, a tainted milk scandal, which actually was also was really an infant formula scandal. This headline's a little misleading. And also pet food. In 2008, if some of you may recall, pets started dying around the world, and we weren't sure why. And then when 6 children died and over 300,000 were hospitalized in China, it became clear that something was wrong. And upon further exploration, it was learned that melamine, a type of lead, was being added to these products to make them heavier. And one of the things about fraud is there's always an economic incentive. That's one of the key points of the definition, is that there's an economic motive behind it. And sure enough, it led to this big scandal. Hearings were held in Washington, D.C. by the FDA. And eventually, 2 individuals were actually executed for a tainted milk, the tainted milk scandal in China, which was really quite remarkable. I've been lecturing in China for 15 years now, in Shanghai and Beijing, and I was there the day after one of these executions was carried out, which was interesting. It's not just China, though. We forget sometimes in our arrogance of the moment, so to speak, that the U.S. has a very sordid history with food fraud as well. Even in 1858, Swill Milk in New York City, which was milk has long been a subject of fraud, according to the New York Times, killed up to 8,000 children a year. I don't think that's been accurately documented, but nevertheless, the stories were out there. This is an article from the New York Times back in 1890. So this has been a problem for a long time, and not only in the US and in China in modern times, but historically, and that's one of the reasons I was so drawn to this subject. You go all the way back to the Roman Empire, and there are many accounts of fraud with bread and wine and olive oil and honey. In fact, there's a recipe by Apicius, who was an ancient cook or a philosopher, and he put together a cookbook of recipes. And one of the recipes is how to commit honey fraud. Very open and quite accessible to people. And so fraud has been around ever since we've had trade. And it's a remarkable historical artifact with respect to trade and commerce. But it's even worse today because of our modern food system and the trade lines that we have. In Asia, again, a lot of attention being paid to food fraud. This is a recent publication on the impact of food fraud in Asia. It's something that all countries in Asia are paying attention to. Consumers there are no different than they are here in the US. They want authentic food, they want safe food, and they usually want cheap food, although that sometimes counters against authenticity and safety. Oceana released a study in 2013 that's still relevant today. In fact, the New York Attorney General's office issued a study just a few years ago. But in this study, it was really interesting. Fish is probably the most prevalent to fraud of all the food products that you can find. And according to recent statistics, about 70% of sushi is fraudulent. About 30% of typical restaurants. Snapper is oftentimes the victim of fraud. So you pick up a snapper at a sushi bar, it's not what you think it is. Does it mean it's unsafe? No, it doesn't mean it's unsafe, but it's not what you bargained for as a customer. In some cases, there are safety issues, as in the case of melamine and infant formula, or especially with food allergens when they creep up to us in spices that oftentimes are also targets of fraud. You may remember this. This is the UK horse meat scandal. I ironically was in London the very day this happened, in the law office of the attorney who got a call in the middle of our meeting and quickly told me, "I'm going to have to terminate this conversation, Professor Roberts. I have an important call." I said, "Well, everything okay?" And she said, "Yes, you'll read about it in the newspapers tomorrow." And this is what that call was about. In place of beef at restaurants, whether fast food or high-end restaurants, there appeared horse meat. And it really bothered the UK customers. Is horse meat unsafe? No. Is it less healthy? No, but it's not what people bargain for. And there's certainly an aesthetic to horse meat that offends a lot of people. And so this was a scandal that really awakened the UK, who now has a very vigilant food fraud task force that has addressed this issue, among other issues that they've addressed in food fraud. Honey is another really interesting subject, something that our center at UCLA has been particularly devoted to. But honey is, if you buy shelf honey off the store, you're very likely to be getting a fraudulent product. Honey has a lot of natural sugars in it, and sugars are easily replaceable. And so you get a lot of cheap synthetic sugars. Fructose corn syrup, for example, is often added. Even though the US has an embargo on honey from China, it's actually goes into other parts of Asia and then works its way into the US. One of the ironies today is that honey is so popular. Shampoo, spices, ingredients, honey is an extremely popular product right now. You'd expect the price is up. You'd expect the producers to have an all-time high price for their products, US producers. It's not. The price has dropped out from underneath them. They're barely hanging on. Why? Because of the flood of imported honey from other countries that's oftentimes very cheap, because it is cheap. It's fraudulent. This has elicited a global response. In Europe, Europol and Interpol, which are two crime enforcement bodies, have engaged in various operations. This was dated 2014 on your screen, but just this year, 2020, there was another massive raid of food fraud products. Everything from airport lockers to stores to warehouses to homes even. There was a massive crackdown on fraud, and a lot of everything from mushrooms to grains to dairy products to fruit juices to spices were confiscated by the European authorities. Here's another example, a headline story of Walmart recalling donkey meat in China after tests revealed fox. Donkey meat's a very popular product in China, but instead of donkey meat, there was fox in its place. I took this actual product here that was in New York City to the FDA in Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. And pomegranate juice, I was helping the growers here in California. Pomegranate's a very popular product here in California. And the juice that was coming in from Turkey, or in this case, Georgia, was cheap, really cheap. And so we tested it, and sure enough, now, normally when you go to the FDA, they don't ever show any emotion. Their faces remain expressionless, and because they're sort of police and they don't like to show a lot of emotion. So I took them the test, and it showed that not only did these products not have any pomegranate juice, they didn't have any juice at all. It was just sugar water, and with a lot of stuff added to it. And that did elicit actually a couple of raised eyebrows. So it comes in all different shapes and sizes and types. Some books that have been written recently on food fraud that are popular books for reading. The one on the left, Extra Virginity, talks about the scandalous role of olive oil fraud in Italy. What's interesting is, as Jean-Pierre mentioned, I teach in Italy, in fact, in addition to China. I know I have a hard gig, but nevertheless, somebody's got to go to Italy, and I go to Italy and I teach, and it's very popular. And I've been working with the government there for a number of years on olive oil fraud. What really had happened, and this kind of shows you the business complexities to fraud, is that Spain had grown tons and tons of olive trees. And so you think that California has a lot of walnut trees and pistachio trees and nut trees. It pales in comparison to the amount of trees that were grown in Spain for olives. They began to drop to the ground. And instead of wasting the olives, and they were put in hard places to really harvest, they began to gather the olives that were rotten. And then somebody figured out, hey, if we add the rotten olives, the bad olives, to the good olives, we can make a cheaper form of olive oil nobody will ever know. Well, Italy started to purchase those olives from Spain and other European countries as well. As a result, you had really bad olive oil coming out of Italy. And again, a lot of the olive oil on the store shelf today is not great olive oil. We call it pomace, which is really the hot dog version of a steak. One of the reasons to determine whether it's authentic, if it says it was bottled in Italy or distributed in Italy, and then if you turn the back of the olive oil and you notice in really small print the number of countries of origin, then you know you're probably getting a pretty bad product of olive oil. If it says made in Italy, and Italy is the only country it comes from, you're probably getting a really good product. So there's ways that consumers can discern this, but not every consumer knows to do this, and it's not advertised very much as well. But the 100% virgin olive oil that you see on the store shelf is probably not that great. The book Swindled, an interesting historical book, and then finally Fake Food by Larry Olmsted was landed on the New York Best Time Seller list, and it's actually a very kind of practical, good book to read if you're interested in the subject.
I need to eat now, Mom. My school's.
There's some efforts being taken by U.S. Pharmacopoeia, which is a food fraud database that they're working very closely with the FDA, and they're actually collecting data for the first time on the prevalence of fraud. And now there's a number of other databases in different other parts of the world that are doing the same. So we're starting to get a sense as to what's out there and how complicated it is, and it is very complicated. So in my classes, we have a lot of fun with food fraud, if you can have fun with it. But nevertheless, this is an example of a small class that I taught. Usually my classes are quite large, but this one is when I first started teaching at UCLA, and we had an olive oil demonstration. And it's kind of an interesting exercise because it's a great way to educate the students. Most of the students who take my class are sort of foodies or consider themselves as such. And then we get different olive oil samples, and I normally would call UC Davis. They have an olive oil and wine center, the Robert Mondavi Center at UC Davis, and I would ask them, what's the worst olive oil you can find on the shelf these days? And they'll say anything at Vons. So sure enough, I'd go to the store and I'd buy Bertolli's or some other olive oil off the shelf. And I would use that as my worst case sample of olive oil, pomace. And then I would get a good California olive oil, which has been historically pretty good. And then I get a really high brand olive oil that I go either to Beverly Hills or a great store, or oftentimes I bring back olive oil with me for my trips out of Italy. And we have a test tasting in class. And every single year I've done this, the worst olive oil wins, because the students are so acclimated to what they think olive oil should taste like. And so it's really eye-opening for them. And I have to confess, I don't tell the students this, but when I get the really good olive oil, I make sure it has kind of a kick and a little bit of bitterness to it. Not all great olive oil shares those characteristics, but I do it intentionally so it kind of shocks the students and they therefore vote for it for last place. But it's kind of an interesting exercise. And it's really interesting for the students to have this learning experience that in many ways we don't know what real food tastes like anymore. So at UCLA, we're attacking this problem, or at least addressing it through various publications. The one on the far right, a food authenticity, a document that we've issued a few years ago. On the left is a book that I wrote that was published by Cambridge University Press that covers all of food law, but it goes into some depth into food fraud. But one in the middle is kind of interesting. This is our honey paper. And one of the things that we bring out in this paper is, this is a white paper, is that the law of, what I like to call the law of unintended consequences. So as I mentioned to you, that honey producers are actually what I call in the paper an endangered species, because economically they can't stay afloat. Now what's interesting is that, and this is a startling case of the left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing. One thing that we're all concerned about, and I'm sure that everybody on this, listening to me right now, has heard of this issue of pollination, the disappearing pollinators. We're worried about honeybees that are pollinators disappearing from our communities. Why are pollinators so important? Because without pollinators, we're not going to have much to eat, or at least good, healthy products. Now, Whole Foods has been so concerned about this that they've actually had demonstrations in their stores, in two of their stores, where they invite people in to see what's in the store without, if we don't have honeybees pollinating our trees and flowers and other crops. And what's interesting about, another interesting retailer that's been involved in this is Walmart. Walmart has actually patented a robot honeybee pollinator because they realize that the future of food, the future of retail food establishments depends on having pollination. So the scientists, the government, all governments around the world are worried about this. A lot of, hardware stores are banning, for example, certain pesticides, trying to reduce the threat to pollinators. So my point in this white paper is that we're worried about pollinators. We do a lot of work in this area and we're very concerned about it. But on the other hand, the manager of the pollinators, who are these honeybee producers, who usually draw income from both their honey and from pollination, are going out of business because of the drop of honey prices due to fraud. And so we actually not only will lose our pollinators, our bees, but we're also going to lose the people who manage the bees. And so fraud has a lot of interesting sort of consequences, and that's what this paper does. Europe recognized this a few years ago, and Europe actually has a recommendation that they clean up honey fraud in order to save the managers of the pollinators, the honey producers. So these are publications that we write. We do a lot of thinking about it. So recently, we are, as Jean-Pierre mentioned, our center at UCLA entered into a partnership with the FAO, which is the largest department at the United Nations. And they're based in Rome, right across the street from Circus Maximus, for those of you that have been there, just down the street from the Coliseum. It's a really big complex, thousands of people work there. It's a wonderful institution. I worked there as a visiting scholar before I moved to Los Angeles. In this partnership, one of the first things we were asked to do is to write a massive paper on global approaches to food fraud. And I just submitted the paper. I'm waiting to get edits back. It's about 50 pages long, single space. It's very dense. We cover a lot of international law remedies, a lot of very complicated sort of public-private partnerships and soft law approaches. I'm not going to go into detail on this for you because you're not my law class and you don't want to hear about it. But just know that there's a lot of really interesting strategies legally that both we can do internationally as well as national governments. And so that's what we were focusing on the paper. The one point that I do want to make, though, about the paper that I think is really illustrative of the modern food system is that it's globalness. Don't ever think that you don't live in a world that's completely connected food-wise. I have a good friend who used to be the food safety vice president of Walt Disney, and he loved this slide that he used to share with me, a little finger dessert. 15 countries contributed to that dessert. Citric acid, which is probably one of the most important ingredients. All of you have consumed citric acid in the last 2 days, I promise you. If you've eaten anything processed, if you've had any kind of beverage that wasn't water or milk, if you've had citric acid. Citric acid, 90% of it comes from China. There's just the ingredient. We live in an interconnected world when it comes to food. And you think you're buying hamburger that maybe comes from just one source. We blend everything together, including orange juice. Orange juice comes from a lot of different countries. It's all blended together. Multi-ingredient products always have a lot of international components to it. So in this world system of world food chains or world food lines, as we call it, I prefer to call it a world food maze. It's incredibly complicated. And because of that, there's all sorts of opportunities for cheating at different points of the line. And that's what goes on. And that's why food fraud is such a prevalent problem. I leave you with one last point, and then in fact, I'll stop my sharing now so I can see all of you. But the one last point, and that is that the question is, do people care? Do you care? Do my students care? Do I care? I still eat sushi, even though I'm pretty sure I'm not getting what I think I'm getting. But it is an interesting question, and more people are caring because consumers are demanding authenticity. And that's one of the reasons why the United Nations is responding, because they're getting a lot of pressure from countries where consumers are really upset about this. So it is something that a lot of people are paying attention to, but it's kind of an interesting question to think about. There are some products that we've given up on, like maple syrup. Maple syrup's done. You can't find authentic maple syrup unless you're willing to pay an arm and a leg for it. But if you go to a pancake house, you're not getting maple syrup. You're getting just sugar. And if you buy maple syrup that's fairly cheap off the shelf, you're not getting maple syrup. And we all know that, and we tend to be okay with it. Do we want honey to go the same way? So these are interesting questions, and I'm going to stop now and see if you have any questions for me. But thank you for letting me join you, and I hope that you still enjoy your lunch.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was very informational and very shocking, especially the sushi mentioned. Okay, do we have a question? I see James, your hand's up.
Yes. Is it Dr. Roberts?
You can call me Michael. We're not at
Okay, I'll call you. Thank you, sir. Well, everyone at Rotary knows that I worked for a media organization for many years. And when you mentioned 2008 in China, 2009 in Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, the Nestle's company, which is the #1 distributor of foods, because there's 10 major distributors of foods in the world. Mm-hmm. And Nestle's the #1, which is a Switzerland company, not a US company. It's a Switzerland company. Mm-hmm. And they were found from China next year, it wound up in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And many children died from that powdered milk.
Yep, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, and I'm aware of that because I've done the stories and I actually traveled to those places. Mm-hmm. See, the problem I think we don't understand is that when you talk about food fraud, there's only 10 companies that control $360 billion worth of food, which you cannot talk about, sir, which you cannot talk about. And I wouldn't ask you to do that. Oh, meaning talk about companies. You got,
I can talk about companies.
You got Unilever, you got quite a few companies like that.
Yeah.
So, and all of them have law firms that are spread all over the world.
Yeah.
So I found that out. So what I'm saying, sir, how do we can't fight the 10 major firms that controlled over a large percentage of food and drinks in the world. So we can't fight that, but how, I mean, I can go on to stories that we did on some of the companies I won't mention that were selling foods that were not organic. We did the stories. And so and that was 20 some odd years ago. So how are we going to get around this, sir?
What is your first name?
James.
James. Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, when I went to Washington, D.C., and I was asked to give a talk at the GMA, which is the Grocery Manufacturers Association, the largest association of food companies in the world. And I asked the question, because there was a hearing the FDA had at that time.
Yes, yes.
And I was on the panel with the FDA, who was official was assigned to this issue. And at the hearing, the food companies didn't show up. They were asked to show up to talk about fraud. Nobody came. And I asked the question, where were all of you?
How many did not show up, sir? That's the, see.
Almost all of them didn't show up. Mm. So I asked the question, why didn't you show up? And one brave hand went up in the back. And he said, well, I wanted to go, but our lawyers told us we couldn't go.
The lawyers, yes.
What we don't know doesn't hurt us. But James, I'm telling you right now, things have changed. And the trajectory is in the right direction. And the reason why is because of people like you working in media have done a great job at exposing this issue. So consumers are getting more interested in it. And there's one key stakeholder that you didn't mention involved in the food business that's become even more powerful over the last 20 years. And it's also due to consolidation, retailers. So retailers are really the gateway to consumers. And in many respects, retailers in fact, all of my papers, all of my writings are all directed towards the retailer. And I have an invitation now to meet with Walmart to talk about the paper we just submitted to the UN, with not at the just Walmart middle management, at the very top. And they have a commitment because their consumers are starting to demand this. And so retailers are the key, I think. It's the manufacturers are going to do what they can get away with, although there are some who have come around as well. Now what you're seeing, James, is instead of that, nobody showing up at that hearing at the FDA, there's actually a lot of food companies stepping up because it's consumer driven. And the media is helping. I was just interviewed by Vice, for example, and BBC recently on food fraud. It's becoming more out there in the front. And so there's change. It's not happening fast enough for me to be happy with it, but there is change in the air. And for the very first time, the UN is actually picking up this topic, which is actually quite extraordinary. So we're headed in the right direction, but a lot of lives, as you pointed out, have been lost in the process. And a lot of people have been sick as a result. You know, it's kind of it's an integrity pandemic, really, as I look at it.
And sir, to a sidebar real quick, the Coca-Cola company, the issues with them in India, with the waters. It's so much, it's so big, it's so international. The Coca-Cola company in India, I mean, they were just trying to take all the waters that they could, leaving farmers with nothing.
Yeah.
And they almost I was in India when that happened, and they almost got away with it.
Yeah.
But it was the international press that brought that issue up.
Yeah. I just, last night, I wish you were with me last night. I had a lecture last night. One of the questions I asked my class is the role of media in lawyering. So lawyers who are trying to clean up problems, help with problems, what's the role of social media and media in trying to actually persuade? Because really the key to affecting any kind of social change or health change or whatever it is the narrative. I mean, we see it with mask, with COVID, right? What's the narrative? You choose the narrative, you know, personal freedom, or is it personal responsibility? And it's the same thing in any social issue. And certainly with food fraud, we've seen it pronounced very, very clearly that the media has an extremely important role. Thank you, James.
Thank you, James. Okay,
Sir, I will go with you to your next lecture. Let me know. I'll go with you.
Okay, thanks, James. I have 5 more people with questions. The next one is Maurice.
Maurice, fire away.
Michael, thanks for a good talk. So just 2 quick questions, kind of a little bit retail. Do you think that In-N-Out is really as pure as they say they are? Like which fast food place do you think adheres to their most pure ingredients that they say they are? And without advocating for Trader Joe's, I get all my olive oil at Trader Joe's, and there's a sale on Spanish olive oil compared to the regular olive oil. And so what do you think of the Trader Joe's olive oil? I don't buy it at Ralph's because it's too expensive. It's got a good price at Trader Joe's.
I'm on really thin ice to start to criticize food companies. You all know. I personally don't buy olive oil at any retail outlet, unless it's California olive oil. California olive oil is a pretty good brand.
Okay.
But a lot of the olive oil that comes in from other countries, I don't buy it at a what's the store? So I got a brain cramp right now. On Fair Oaks.
Bristol Farms?
Bristol Farms, thank you. They have a fairly good selection. Okay. Yeah, they do. But Maurice, I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to pay more for real food. And that's not, there's an equity component to this actually that I think is really concerning. In terms of fast foods, none of them.
Not even In-N-Out?
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, you're not buying nutrition when you go to In-N-Out. You're looking for me to justify your choice of In-N-Out. It's not going to work.
That's for a friend.
I go to In-N-Out too, but I'm not under the illusion that I'm getting healthy, nutritious, authentic food.
Thank you, Maurice.
Thank you.
Next we have Jesse Hong.
Jesse.
Yes, Michael. Thank you for the lecture. I was just wondering, so you say you work mostly with the FDA. So in the case of a false or below quality virgin oil, that's not a public health issue, is it?
No.
Is that more of an economic issue?
Yes.
And what is FDA's role in regulating whether the olive oil is authentic or not?
You guys ask great questions. That's one of the reasons nothing gets done. is the FDA is a public health agency. Although they do, in their statutory authority, they are in charge of fraud, actually. They do have that statutory authority, but they're not going to act on it because of politics, really. I mean, the last thing, the FDA, every time I've gone to the FDA with a food fraud example, their first question is it creating a health issue? If the answer is no, that it falls way down to the low end of the priority scale. If it does, then we're going to see some action, and they'll act very quickly and very responsibly. But they're not, and that's, my paper goes into this. The gist of my paper to the UN is really this is going to be public-private partnerships working with large retailers, and that's the only way this is going to work. Because the FDAs all over the world are not locked into it because it doesn't always raise a public health issue.
Thank you, Jesse. Okay, next we have Stephen Wong.
Yes. Hello. Hey, Michael. Great topic and really love it. I have two questions. First question is regarding ractopamine in meat. Is it really not detrimental to our health? And my second question is regarding seafood allergy. Personally, I have a lot of seafood allergy. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. And I think it's because of the live seafood that we get, that they put a lot of medications in the fish tank. And what do you think of that? Thank you.
Great question. I can travel all over the country and not find anybody to ask me a ractopamine question. This is fantastic. So ractopamine is one of those great international issues that shows how complicated science can be and political science can be. So ractopamine is a drug that's given to animals that in the US for years that is very, very controversial. It makes the animals more palatable for consumption. It makes them, however, very, very irritable at the end of their lives. So a lot of animal rights activists opposed it. And what happened was there was a showdown between the US and Europe over ractopamine at this world body called the Codex Alimentarius Commission, which sets standards for food that is administered by the World Trade Organization when there's a trade conflict. So for example, with biotechnology, hormones in beef, Europe and the US have been on opposite sides. And the US has won those two cases. With respect to ractopamine, Europe was very opposed to ractopamine because of animal rights issues, and they also were not convinced of the health issues. So what happened was, is that there was a vote that was taken at Codex, and by one vote, it was the US side won. But what was, and that was, and somebody wrote, you know, a wonderful article, is science like a 50 to 49 vote? Is that how we determine science? And so but China enters into the picture at this point. And what's fascinating is China took Europe's side on this issue. And China said, you know what, we have a problem with the US studies. Why? Because the US studies or human trial studies, they consumed meat that had ractopamine. They didn't show any health effects. But China said, wait just a second. These people don't eat what our people eat. They didn't eat the organs of the animals where the ractopamine is more likely to reside. Therefore, we reject your science and we're not going to allow you to import it into China. So, you know, not all stereotypes are evenly matched. Here's China taking what a lot of folks saw as a better position in terms of food safety than the US. So what happens, how do we finally resolve this problem? China purchased one of the largest protein meat companies in the world, Smithfield, who was the biggest proponent of ractopamine. The day after China's acquisition, ractopamine fell by the wayside. Smithfield announced they weren't going to sell it. They weren't going to use it on their animals anymore. So it's a fascinating case of how law works, science works, politics works, and at the end of the day, the market works or doesn't work in all those cases. So yeah, ractopamine is a fascinating issue and one that China actually ended up prevailing on behalf of consumers, I think, for the positive.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Wang. All right, next we have Denise Wadsworth.
Hi, Michael. I'm a public school educator at the middle school level right here in SM. And my question is about if there were two pieces of advice, two things I could teach my children to prepare them for what's going on. And I already share about the climate clock with them. What would those two pieces of advice be?
You mean in terms of consumption around food or just food in general?
Consumption around food.
Boy, two pieces of advice. I think there's two sides of food that are important for young people to think about, and they do think about it. One is the health side. So I would say just, eat more vegetables and eat less sugar and salt for sure. And then secondly, on the environmental side, my advice would be start thinking now about what kind of world you want to live in with respect to food and knowing its impact on the world. I mean, we're moving into plant-based food substitutes. Why? Not because they're healthier necessarily, but they can lessen the impact on the environment. And so I think young people fascinate me when it comes to food. They're willing to eat insects. They're willing to eat energy bars that have insect components to them. They're willing to eat plant-based substitutes. The whole future of this food system really depends on young people. So, yeah, great question. And every time I talk to food entrepreneurs, they're focused on young people. It used to 6 months ago, sustainability was the buzzword. Now it's regenerative agriculture. Sustainability doesn't mean anything anyway. Nobody really knows how to define it, but regenerative agriculture is really the hot new thing right now. And I know this because I just met with a group of investors, VCs, the other morning, and that's all they wanted to talk about.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Okay, Brian Hathorn.
Yeah, thanks. This was a great talk. I was wondering, it seems like the best place to commit fraud, if you want to do it, is where you can turn a low value product into a high value product. And it seems like it's pretty easy to detect if you do DNA on, you can distinguish pretty easily between a fox and a donkey or whatever. I was at a conference in, I think it was 1999, back before I went over to the dark side and became a lawyer, and they were doing isotopic analysis on vanilla, which is a small molecule and you can synthesize it really cheap, but Tahitian vanilla was 100 times the price of the synthetic vanilla. And so it was a real thing. Has the isotopic analysis taken off, and is that widely used now?
Yes. Great question, Brian. Since you're a lawyer too, I'll answer this in kind of a lawyery way, if you don't mind. So yes, it has, and there are the ability to detect fraud has increased magnificently over the last 5 years. The problem is that the fraudsters really know how to maneuver quite readily. So once you figure out that you're going to lose in a laboratory, you figure out a different way to commit the fraud. Isotopic process, like everything else, is like a fingerprint analysis. So you just have to figure out how to have different fingerprints. And so what happens though, Brian, in terms of law and where law really becomes important. So in honey, for example, there's 2 labs right now in Germany that can detect honey fraud very easily. So let's say that I send my honey to that lab and I'm a honey manufacturer, I'm a retailer. Well, not a retailer necessarily, but a manufacturer, a blender, if you will. And the honey comes back positive. You have a fraudulent product. What happens to that honey? It's not destroyed. The government doesn't take it. There's no duty to report it. So the honey comes back, I sell it on the market. And it's blended by somebody else. And so governance, and this is why governance and law is really important. I have a lot of science friends who keep telling me, well, science will solve this problem. Well, you're not going to solve it scientifically unless you have laws that really work and enforcement and governance that works. The other thing, Brian, that we're starting to see right now is I've been talking to plaintiffs' lawyers for a long time about possible class action in this area. And there's over 200 class action lawsuits right now in California alone on labeling of food. Those are easy cases because you can pick up a label, you see it mislabeled, and you don't have to spend a lot of money as a plaintiff's lawyer, and you run it through like a business. Food fraud is actually really complicated because you got foreign entities, and there's a lot of sophistication involved here. But there are some lawyers right now that I've been working with who are looking at various legal theories that they can bring on these actions. And that will really, I think, be very effective if they can figure out how to do it. But technology is a big part of this, but it works actually both ways.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Okay, we have just 2 more questions and we have about 4 minutes left. So I'm going to give it to Mary Hewlin. Your question, please.
My question, and you touched a little bit
on this with the last answer or end question. But can authentic food producers use copyright and or intellectual property law to combat food fraud, or is it just too lopsided of a battle?
You can't copyright food recipes.
Oh, there you go.
I've got that in my, I wrote a treatise and I actually have a section on this. You might think you could, but you can't. And it's really kind of a bummer for a lot of chefs and creative people who write creative recipes. But really a food product is really a recipe and you can't copyright it. But trademark law can actually help. And so, yeah, there's some intellectual property strategies that might be of help here. Geographical indicators, which are used in Europe that I can't get into right now because we don't have time. They're really complicated, but they help identify geographical location for food. That can actually really help too. So there's parts of it can, but most of it can't.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, final question is from Fred Soul.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Stephen Huang asked the second question back there about food allergies as it applies. And if I'd be very interested in hearing your answer to that question.
That's where food fraud, yes. In fact, there was a spice, oh man, 2 years ago that came out of Texas. And I can't remember the name of it, but that was a fraud and it presented an allergy issue. The FDA acted on it right away. And so, yes, that's one of the concerns we have with fraud is that it can in fact produce allergies. But the problem is you don't know until it starts to hurt people, right? And so, in fact, I personally think, you didn't ask me this, but I think that ingredients and spices or spices, I didn't mean to say ingredients, spices is where a lot of fraud's committed that we just don't know because it's so easy. And most of our spices are imported anyway. I also would say dietary supplements. That's an area that's really ripe for fraud. And I've talked to general counsel at a couple different dietary supplement companies, and I won't say who they are, but they're very concerned about it because it's an easy thing to commit actually, and it's big business. And it's like the Wild West anyway with dietary supplements, even without them being imported. I mean, the U.S. doesn't really regulate that field very tightly anyway.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Fred. Okay, Michael, thank you so much for coming today. You can always gauge the success of a program by the amount of questions and engagement the members have. So thank you so much.
Great.
We will be donating a book on your behalf to our Crow Library. So thank you for coming today. We have one more announcement from Greg Jones. Greg, here you are. If you can unmute, there we go.
So did you want me to announce that there's foundation training tonight? Is that what it was?
That's what,
oh,
yeah.
okay. Well, thank you. Yeah. So tonight at 5 o'clock, for anybody that's on your club foundation committee, we're having training. And I've sent the link to John Jones and Bill Payne also has it. And since you gave me the microphone, never do that at the end, Aaron. Next Monday, the 28th, we're having a really great webinar at 6 p.m. about making membership memorable. And since this is a very memorable membership club, you might want to tune into that. It's on the district website on DACDB. You can sign in. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, Greg. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay.
Aaron, could
Yes.
I just quickly, since we're not doing as much as we usually do out in the community, but we're still going to do a lot with the community grants and all that. But we have been supporting 2 scouts. Well, we haven't, but we have been doing the bookkeeping for them. But for Gavin Hussein, who's doing the portable hand washing things, we've gotten some Rotarians to contribute, or they just voluntarily did that. But also the community has gotten behind that too, and he has raised $3,791 now. And so that project has met his budget, and I suspect that it will be completely successful. And then Jacob Bassards, Paul's son, who has an Eagle project with the YMCA property, we've raised $1,250 for his project. So anybody that wants to, we're not hitting Rotarians for this, but if Rotarians want to help out these Eagle Scout projects, they can either send a check to Rotary Charities or let me know when I charge their credit card and the money goes to Rotary Charities. Okay. But it seems like it's working pretty well.
Thank you so much for the update, Dennis. That's really important. Okay, please don't forget next week for our program, we have Craft Talks. Members Mike Kalaki and Evie Darmali will be our guest speakers. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Michael, for your presentation today. We also want to thank our guests, Greg Jones, District Governor, Dean Serwin, and Jenny Say. Okay, and I know that your husband, was it Blair, Devin, that was on the call as well? Maybe he's off now. But please welcome them back. The September 24th, 2020 meeting of the Rotary Club of San Marino is officially adjourned. Thank you.
See you at the meet and greet, whoever's going to be there, all of our yearlings, new members. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise, for doing the announcement. Oh, she's gone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mike. See you next week.
Thank
Thank
you.
Greg.